Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse podcast here at ProMat 2025. And on the couch joining me here, I have Kyle Smith from enVista and Ryan Boyd from SRSI, Slate River Systems, joining us. And they're representing the SLAM MHI industry group. And we're going to talk a little bit about that industry group, but we're also going to talk about the SLAM section of the operation. So you guys want to kick us off here? I guess tell us first, how's the week going? We're on the last day. We got a few hours left of ProMat 2025, closing out strong here with a good conversation, I think. But how's the week been?
The week's been great. I mean, I'll tell you, I was having a conversation last night with a client, and they were talking about the positivity in the show this year, which is a little bit different than previous years. There's a lot of good forward momentum for people right now. And I'll tell you, coming out of the show, it's one of the best I've had in a while.
Nice. Good to hear.
Yep, I would echo that. And it seems like customers came with a defined focus this year. It wasn't as much open-ended questions. It was, we're looking for XYZ. So it was a really good show for us.
Nice. That's good to hear, definitely. And I think it's very interesting to hear that, right? That they have a plan. They're a little more educated too, as well, because there's so much technology out here. Where a couple years ago, whether it was ProMat or Modex, I think a lot of people were coming kind of like just seeing like, oh, what's even possible, right? And now I got to learn about this, right? And now I think that is caught up a little bit. So, and I love the positivity, definitely. That's a good thing 100%. To hear, for sure, for the industry. So you guys are representing the SLAM group of MHI. So Ryan, why don't you tell us what that's all about?
Yeah, so SLAM has a couple different terms, especially now in this age of robotics. On one side of it, it's the simultaneous location and mapping when it comes to the AGVs and AMRs. But, in our particular space, I think it's the simplest form, which is how people get into automation. But it's, you scan, label, apply, and manifest, right? In order to do that, you have to know what's going on inside your four walls in a way that's strategic and it's process managed, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of the first step for anybody that's thinking about automating, because if you don't know how you're going to do things in a given day before you're doing them, you're kind of behind the curve.
Yeah.
I've seen some locations where I've gone to and they say, hey, we're getting a directive from the corporate office. We want to automate. They're like, okay, let's do it. You walk inside the building and they're doing line side calls for manufacturing with WhatsApp.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
But the automation word gets people all fired up in this industry. And they love it. And it's a great word, and it's a great freaking objective to get done when you're trying to make something happen to, one, make more money, and two, save some headaches down the road. But Kyle and I were talking about this before the show. You got to walk before you run.
Yeah.
And to me, it's been the last 5 years, that's kind of been my mantra when it comes to talking to people about automating, because a lot of people think, hey, I can just do this, but you can't. You go back to the Raymond network, right? The forklift group.
Oh, sure.
And their thing about 4 or 5 years ago was you got to optimize before you automate.
Right.
I love it. I mean, because they're 100% right. You have to figure out what you're doing before you can actually apply something that gives you the opportunity on.
Interesting. What do you think?
Yep, and I think it goes back to whenever people come to us, right? You hit on automation, everyone's like, yes, we're going to go 100% full steam forward. You need to have a automation roadmap, right? What is it going to look like, right? Current state to future state, and what steps are you going to take to get there, right? And break it into manageable categories or progressions of how you're going to automate.
Yeah, interesting. And I think it's really interesting, too, that you're saying people are excited about it, right? And I think it definitely is an exciting thing. Like, you come in here and you're like, wow, like, this is cool, right? These things are cool, right? And we see all these things and we want to be like, oh, yeah, let's try this, let's do that, let's do that. So for the SLAM process themselves, I mean, what type of automation solutions are we seeing out there? What is really kind of applicable to that part of the operation?
Well, I'll tell you, that's kind of a moving target, too. I mean, it's growing every year.
Yeah.
Like, if you go back 5-10 years in this entire space, I mean, the whole idea of automation, it was a sexy word. People loved it. And nobody really knew what the potential was. But as we get better and better at doing certain things in the industry, those type of technologies grow as well. So as far as the scan, label, apply, and manifest piece, it's really just knowing what's going on in your house. It's more housekeeping than anything else. So if you can master that piece of it, you're on your way to doing things in a really good way. I think echoing what Kyle said earlier, the whole continuous improvement roadmap is really, it's a big part of what we do every day. I tell customers all the time, we're going to do this and we're going to hit the nail right on the head. And we're going to fix these 6 problems that we have in front of us. But once we do this, guess what? You're going to find another 6 problems that we're going to have to go after again.
Yeah, there's going to be more problems.
Opens the door for more opportunity.
So when it comes to SLAM in our space with the label and manifest side of it, it's really more about just getting your house in order and making sure that you're ready to do those types of things like automate.
Yeah.
And if you can't do the simple things like making sure that the right stuff's going out the door, it's really hard to do the hard things.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, what do you think, Kyle?
Yep, and I think, one of the things, it's the last 100 feet of the warehouse, right? So you're picking a specific area, right, and we're going to correct any issues we have there, right? And you look at, what do you look for, right? You're manually applying labels, right? You're getting chargebacks from your carriers, right? You're sending, or you're getting poor rates for your carrying, right? You're not doing any rate shopping, right? So it's how scalable do you want it, right? Do you want to just put a label on the box and out the door, or do you want to actually go through the full automated process with it, right? And understanding what SLAM means, I think, is important, right? It's not just scan, label, apply, manifest, right? Scanning, right? It's reading barcodes, yes, but you're also check weighing, right? Dimensioning the case, right? On the labeling side, it's not just printing a label. Where are you getting the label information from? Are you rate shopping? Is the placement of the label important? So all those things, need to be factored in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of different kind of individual parts, like you were saying there, Kyle, of this overall process, right? And how do we kind of bring them together? How do we tie them together as well, right? So one is, positively impacting the other, right? And, we're not getting faster on label placement, but then we're getting slower on palletization or something like that at the end of the line. And how do we kind of coordinate that all together there? So how do you advise people to, I guess, get themselves set up so that they're ready to apply these technologies, right? Because to your earlier point, you want to optimize before you automate, right? So you don't want to go, grab one of these humanoid robots if you're still even just picking on paper, right? There's a lot of steps in between until you can get to that level. So how do you recommend people to kind of, I guess, kick off that process? Like what are some of those initial steps and how can they really set themselves up for success with technology down the road?
Yeah, and I think, understanding what their current process is, right? Are they using WMS? Are they using ERP? Is it currently a manual operation, right? Tape measures, desktop printers, desktop scales, right? Understand what their process is and what that future state is going to look like, and does it go to a fully automatic solution or a semi-automatic solution? There's your low scale, right, mid scale, and then your high scale fully automated. So first, understanding customer requirements, right? And I said it earlier, current state to future state and where they want to get to.
Yeah. No, and I'll echo that as well. I mean, we have a comprehensive phased approach to the way we approach every single application. Somebody says, hey, I need more pallets in the place, right? We go looking in. What's the current state? Where's the as-built? We look top down. I'll tell you, you'd be amazed at how many customers I walk into that you're like, hey, do you guys have a layout of your facility? And they don't.
No.
And so you build it, right?
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, I'm kind of a geek when it comes to that because I love to know what's going on in their building before I even try to recommend any solutions to help them. So, for example, yesterday I had a call with a client, and we were going back and forth about certain processes that happened. I mean, and I went straight back to the point of, listen, you understand your business better than I ever can.
Yeah.
I'm just doing my best to try to keep up. And so, to Kyle's point, you look for the as-built or the current state and where they're trying to go, and you build the roadmap and get there.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's very interesting, like you said, that you go in and they're like, oh, we don't even have a layout of our building or a drawing of our building to go on. And I think a lot of people are in that position, right? Because, traditionally, if we think back maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, like none of this technology was around. I mean, this show is dramatically changed in the 6 years that I've been coming myself here. So, having kind of all these other data points and information and everything is relatively new for a lot of organizations that have been doing things a certain way for so long, right? And how do we adjust the mindset to be able to do that? So I'm curious here, as we're at ProMat this week, I mean, what has been some of the things that you guys have been hearing from customers who are maybe in that kind of position, or they're looking to advance their automation or advance their just technology overall forward?
I mean, it's all over the place, right? Just the emergence of AMRs, right? It's a game changer for the whole industry, right? How people are picking, right? I mean, goods to person, goods to robot versus the old traditional pick the card.
I'll tell you, I talked earlier about how positive the show was, right? So this is the first show since the whole COVID roll-in that I've really felt a good forward path with everybody just looking at automation. During COVID, you had the big labor shortages, and everybody was like, wow, it's costing us a lot of money to get people inside the building, whereas before, you could just throw bodies at it, right? So the whole thought process of system-driven processes inside of a building really kind of didn't exist at the companies that were making money until they couldn't make money because they couldn't throw bodies at it anymore. Now, I think people have kind of reset their focus on what they think they need to do going forward. And it's more, hey, I can't just throw another person at it because that person may leave tomorrow over 25 cents an hour. And they're thinking a little bit harder about what they're doing. So previous shows, people come around, they'll kick the tires, they'll look at what's going on, and I don't know if they're really ready yet. This show, the questions that were there, to Kyle's point earlier, are very focused. They're very specific. And that's encouraging because that means people are really thinking about this, not just showing up for a trade show and hoping that the best happens after.
100%.
Interesting. So let me ask you an interesting question then. What's the best question you were asked by a potential customer this week?
Oh, wow, that's a doozy. I got to think about that for a second.
Right?
I don't know if I can really distill that into the best question. Because I've had a lot of really good ones, really thought-provoking questions where people were trying to figure out what they wanted to do going forward. But if I had to pick one, wow, that's really hard.
I'm leaving this one on you, Ryan.
Oh, my Lord.
All eyes are on Ryan.
I'll tell you, the most thought-provoking one for me, because of what I've seen in the last few years, was the one about who to trust, right?
Interesting.
There's been a lot of court cases in the last few years when it comes to automation technology because, unfortunately, because it's exploded so fast, you've got a lot of people out there that are still trying to find their way. And I think really, the answer that I had for that was you really need to look at what you see here because it's all awesome. It's all cool. But you really need to dive into who's got stuff in the field that's working. And I think that really is what it boils down to is that, listen, there are a lot of guys out there with really cool ideas, super new companies that are pitching some really neat stuff, but it looks great in the booth. You got to see it out in the wild first.
Right.
And if you see it out in the wild and they can make that happen, that's kind of the people you need to trust.
And I think it goes back, right, to the trust point, right? Are you going to go with a single source manufacturer versus an integrator that's going to integrate all the pieces together, right? Because as an integrator, right, you're out there looking at the best for the client, right? I'm not tied to a specific manufacturer, and you can put all those pieces together. So when you talk about a slam line, right, there's multiple pieces to it, right? Scanning, labeling, weighing, dimensioning, right? It's a multi-vendor approach, and partnering with the right company, somebody you can trust that has the experience in that field.
I'd agree with that, and I'll tell you, I use this phrase all the time. I talk about square pegs and round holes. Because when you're a rep, and this is not a knock on any OEMs by any stretch of the imagination, but they're really good at what they do. Because it's their singular focus. But to Kyle's point, as an integrator, we don't really have that dialed in because it's our only product. We have the ability to take different products and different softwares and merge them together. Which gives us an advantage. I mean, I'll tell you, years ago when I went from a company that was primarily factory owned to a company that was a dealer, It took me a better part of a year to figure out how the heck were these guys crushing it the way they were, right? But the truth is it dialed back into that. We have the ability to go out and say, okay, listen, I like this widget with this software, with this HMI, right? And I think these work best together. Whereas if somebody else is, singular focused on what they're trying to just move out of the factory, it's not the same approach.
Interesting.
Yep, I would agree.
Yeah, interesting there. And I definitely, I like what you said about seeing it in the wild, right? Because in a booth here, right, at ProMat, I mean, it's like it's going to be the perfect scenario. It's going to be the perfect scenario, right? It's going to have all the nice lighting. It's going to have all that stuff, and so I think that's very interesting there. So let's talk a little bit about, because in the SLAM perspective, right? We see, and especially on like an e-commerce fulfillment side or something like that, there's a ton of volume that's moving through there. But the volume can be variable in a lot of cases, right? You have some seasonality and things like that. So how do you think about, looking at some of these technologies or applications to apply to those last 100 feet? How do you think about scalability and flexibility when it comes to some of these newer technologies?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, anytime I'm having a conversation and anytime we're putting together a solution, you use the word flexibility, and I love that word. Beat my microphone up here. But anytime we're putting an application in place, we talk about flexibility all the time because, to what I said earlier, we're going to fix these 6 problems, right? And then when we fix these 6 problems, we're going to find another 6 problems that happen because we made it better already. Let's make it even better. That's the whole continuous improvement ideology. But at the same time, though, what I understand, and it started even as simple as something like storage, right? Back in 2005, I had a customer who said, hey, we're going to these facilities. We only want 8-foot uprights because that's as high as we're going to go. And I knew these guys well enough to know, they're like, listen, I played this game with y'all before, right? Yeah. You say this is what's going to happen, and then 6 months from now, you're going to tell me, hey, we need to go 20 feet because you've got 20 feet to go to the roof. Yeah. So, that kind of instilled something in my brain back then that every single solution I have, I need to look at the worst common scenario for them and give them the opportunity to grow when they don't even know they need to grow. So, to your point earlier, flexibility is a big thing. Yeah. And whenever you're putting in applications or you're putting in a solution for somebody, you need to think about, okay, what's going to happen that I'm not seeing right now? Because, again, fix these 6 problems, you'll find another 6 that's in there. Yeah. And those people know their application way better than I ever could. But at the same time, though, I need to have a little bit of forethought to say, okay, what do we not know? What do we not see right now? And what do we need to prepare for?
Interesting. Yeah.
Yep.
What do you think?
I think it's providing data-driven results, right? It's not just, hey, we think we need this. Okay, here's a solution for it, right? Let's look at the data behind it, and let's look at a 1, 3, 5, 10-year growth plan. Yeah. You guys may not forecast out a 10-year plan, but the past 10 years you've grown at 10% year over year. That's probably going to continue, maybe increase if you're getting in the e-com, right? So you need to factor in the data piece of it as you're building the solution for the client.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, 100%. I mean, you look at some of the most successful people, and they are data-driven. They're process-driven. The people that kind of do it willy-nilly, that are doing line-side calls with WhatsApp, that want to automate, they get you in trouble sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're looking at KPIs and you're looking at what your end effect is, you can back into any solution you want to do.
Yeah, interesting.
I would agree.
Yeah. So now you mentioned there, Kyle, the kind of 5, 10, 15-year plan right there. And thinking about the future, if we look at the SLAM area and that 100 feet, right, what do you think the future of that area looks like? What are we going to be seeing there?
Well, possibilities are endless in automation because everything's changing. But I just think, right, traceability and accuracy is the big thing with the SLAM line, right? You're not relying on humans anymore to get that, in the delivery space, last mile, warehouse space, last 100 feet, right? It's really just more consistency and accuracy, right? It's shipping, I mean, it's a huge expense for any company.
Right, yeah.
So getting the accuracy in that area, I think, is huge.
Definitely. Yeah, there's no question. I mean, and with AI and everything that's happening right now, I mean, AI's been around for 40 years.
Yeah.
We just haven't used it in the way that we're using it right now, right? But with anything that is technology based, as the technology gets better, it makes it to where things happen a lot faster because you can process the changes that are coming in front of you. And then you get people that have these, sometimes it happens at a bar, sometimes it happens in a boardroom.
Yeah.
They get these harebrained ideas that all of a sudden, wow, I mean, you go all the way back to compact computers in Houston, Texas, and they drew it up on a napkin.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
You have a laptop.
Yeah, I do.
Right in front of you.
Yeah.
The laptop was born, right? But
Right.
back then it was a suitcase. But
Yeah.
Yep.
It was too big. Yeah, definitely.
But again, anytime you have technology that's getting better and better, it creates an environment where the next level of technology can be even greater. And it just takes somebody having a great idea and putting it into process to make it work.
Yeah.
Yep, and I think, right, the technology that happens, right, we keep referring to the last 100 feet, but, it opens the door for the 1,000 feet before it and 500 feet after it, right? Now are we going to do automated sorting into the container?
100%, yeah. I mean,
Interesting.
you got to know what you're playing with, right? If you
Yeah.
don't know what you're playing with, then you can't do what you need to with it. So, you hear a lot about LPNs and unique identifiers with anything that's coming down the line. You can get crazy and go into the $1 million sorters or the $1 million cranes that are in aisles, but if you don't know what you're picking up and putting down,
Yeah.
it's not going to work.
Definitely. Yeah, exactly, right? You need to know what's there and have that visibility, definitely, and get your arms around some of that information and data too, right? So to really know what's going on there. So really interesting to talk to you both and kind of dive into what's going on in the SLAM side of the operation and some of that automation too, and just approaches to technology in general. So really insightful from you both here. If people want to leverage the SLAM industry group as a resource, how do you recommend they do that or engage?
I think it goes back to what Kyle said earlier. I mean, the first thing you need to do is get your housekeeping in order, figure out what your current state is, and then engage with people that you trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, go with the people that have done this for a while, that they're not learning it on the fly, and ask them for help. I tell it's funny. I got 2 grown kids, and I tell them this all the time. It's like the only dumb question is the one you don't ask. So if you're looking to get into this, find somebody that does this every day, that lives this, that loves it, that wants to come talk about it on a podcast.
Yeah.
Yep.
And call them up.
Yeah,
And
there's 2 guys right here.
let's
Yeah.
go. Yeah?
Exactly. But yeah, and a good place to start, right? The MHI website, go
Yeah.
to the SLAM industry group, right? There's a lot of information on there. And then it also lists off, some of their trusted partners in this area.
All right, fantastic. Well,
Or come to ProMat.
Or come to ProMat.
yeah, cool. Well, now you got to come to Modex next year, right?
Yeah, right.
Modex
Definitely.
next year, yep.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate you both coming by the booth and talking to us here about this and dropping some insights on the podcast as well. And we'll definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well as in the show notes so people can connect with Kyle, connect with Ryan here, and also learn more about the SLAM industry group. So thank you very much once again for coming by.
Awesome,
Yep.
man.
Appreciate
Thanks
it,
for having
Kevin.
us.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video here on our YouTube channel, The New Warehouse Podcast, and I appreciate you tuning in. If you liked what you saw, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and if you like this video in particular, make sure you like it as well. And if you want to get this great t-shirt that you see in the video behind me, Warehouses Are Sexy, head to warehousesAreSexy.com and get your own.